Coming up in the following segment, we are going to have Stranger Than Fiction featuring When Animals Attack, one of my favorite shows of all time. So I'm very much looking forward to what this is. I have no idea, by the way, on where Adam is going with this whatsoever. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
One of these stories is from our own neck of the woods, actually.
Oh.
Happened this past week.
Well, now I'm less excited. Should I stay my ass inside? Should I not be here right now?
I'll tell you what.
Should I stay at home?
If anyone should be more terrified, it should probably be me, actually. Yeah, there's something a little too close to home for me. Yeah, something that happened in Pasadena over this past week.
Okay, I'm far enough away. It doesn't affect me then.
Oh, okay. I'm scared. I'm dead.
Carry on. You're fine.
Kevin's fine.
We get news earlier this week in the most ho-hum way possible. The Aaron Rodgers is calling it quits after this year. Just a reporter asked him at their OTA, like, is this going to be your last year? And he's like, yeah, this is it. Just like,
yes.
Just like,
it was one of the last questions, too. Why didn't they get to that earlier?
You would think that'd be one of the first things that they would ask. Very, very odd. But yes, he's hanging it up after I would say, fairly illustrious career as one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the sport, despite what other people might want to say. And for all of his, and I know what rubs a lot of people the wrong way is his attitude. He's a bit aloof. But with all of his aloofness and wanting the spotlight on him, even though he tries to act like he doesn't want the spotlight on him, he's never had, at least I can never recall, someone saying that he was a bad teammate.
That's, I think, the most important point here, right?
Yeah.
The guys who know him much better than we do and the media does, who hang out with him all the time, seem to embrace him and really like him. A friend of the show, Brady Perpinga, has been on with us many times, talked about he's one of the guys, he's gregarious, he's great to hang with. I don't think that's ever been an issue. I think it became more polarizing during COVID and everything and vaccination, stuff like that, and he's going on shows, and now all of a sudden politics are involved and people feel some type of way about that.
Well, people just feel he's a little hoity-toity, the ayahuasca stuff. They feel like he's kind of holier than thou. And then he talks about, and this is, to each their own. People want to live in their private life, but people have had questions about his wife and whether or not she actually exists and whether we're actually doing a Tyra Manti Teo situation here with teammates have not met his wife, teammates' wives have not met his wife has never spoken or said anything or appeared in the public eye in any way, shape, or form. That's neither here nor there. None of that has anything to do with him as a player.
He got catfished so bad he got married to someone that doesn't exist.
I mean, that's what's being floated out there. But the fact that he gets labeled, the big issue for me is he gets labeled as this giant playoff failure. He won one Super Bowl, obviously, been to the conference championship game just a couple of times in his career. But oftentimes it was not his fault. And this is where
most of the time.
Nuance. Oh, you'd say most of the time. So when you mentioned COVID. So a lot of us during COVID had a lot of time on our hands, obviously, and didn't have much to do. And I was doing shows here with Anthony Gargano, and we were, trying to basically talk about whatever we could, and football would oftentimes come up. Aaron Rodgers came up, and I think his very subject matter did. And we were talking about some of his playoff failures, if you want to call them that. So I actually went back and looked at every playoff loss that Aaron Rodgers had in his career up to that point.
You lose.
So that is from 2000. Hey, whatever. Again, a lot of time on my hands had him.
No. That was not directed towards you.
Of course, no. You call me a giant loser.
That's not what I meant, Kevin.
You were probably right.
Here's what I meant.
I love you, man.
One thing I will say, not that the NFL needs me to plug anything, but their NFL Plus app or whatever it is, you can go back and watch any game. I think it goes all the way back into 2010 or something. You go back and watch every single game. They cut out all the commercials, all the fluff in between. You can watch an entire broadcast in 40 minutes.
It's still kind of sad the WWE had to do that first with their own app,
Yeah,
you go all the way back and watch any match you ever wanted to with a subscription service.
Yeah, it's great. It is literally great. So any game that you want to watch within the last decade or decade plus from the NFL, you can do it. And that's how I went back and watched.
So you don't just have to have lazy narratives and rely on your memory. You could actually go back and see how games unfolded play to play?
1,000%.
Huh.
That is true.
What a concept.
I know. It's amazing, right?
Yeah, actually doing the work.
And going back and watching that, if I recall properly, 2 times between 2009 and 2020 would I reasonably say Aaron Rodgers legitimately had a hand in the team losing. Couple of losses to the San Francisco 49ers.
I was going to say, the Niners had his number.
Yeah, a couple of losses to the 49ers. One was the Colin Kaepernick 49ers. The Packers were at home. and that 49er defense dominated, but there were some throws that he missed. And one was
that was
the
game, and there was a weather issue in that game as well.
It was weather, but it was in Green Bay. So, I mean.
Now, did the weather only affect the Packers and not the 49ers?
The 49ers, it was a low-scoring game. So, I mean, both.
The one in SF where Kaepernick ran all over them, that was more on the Packers' defense.
For sure. Well, we'll get to that in a minute because that was a bit. Talk about narratives when it comes to his career. That was a big drawback for him. And then the other was a game against the 49ers. They lost when Jimmy G was the starter, and Jimmy G was like 6 for 9 passing in that game. Aaron Rodgers threw the ball 40 times. He had a couple of touchdowns, a couple of interceptions, could have played better, but he obviously had a higher burden on his shoulders than Jimmy G did. But he did not play well in that game overall. I'll say that.
Fair.
But other than that, there are plenty of games. The majority of the games that he has lost in the postseason have not been because of him.
Well, you remember his first run, I think, to the postseason, maybe his first playoff game.
I do remember it. It was against Arizona.
Who did he miss on a throw with in like a 40-40 type of game?
The final score.
He was spectacular, but he had one miss late on an overthrow. Maybe it was Jennings. I can't remember.
I believe it was Greg Jennings.
People focused on that.
The final
there was
score,
also a late hit, I think.
It was. And he lost. They lost the game in overtime. He was a strip sack. I forget exactly. It may have been a young Calais Campbell that came in and stripped him, and they scored a defensive touchdown. But I believe the final score was like 45-40 or something like that.
Yeah, that was
like
his
both
first
teams
taste
had
of the
over
playoffs.
400 yards passing. Even if he missed a throw, you score 40 points in a playoff game, you should win that game.
Yeah. And he's had multiple Hail Mary throws. Was that also against Arizona, like 10 years later?
That was,
where
yes.
he had the back-to-back 50-yard bombs.
Yeah. 5th all-time in passing yards and completions, 4th in touchdown passes. He's probably going to end up being 3rd past Peyton Manning if he stays healthy.
Are these playoff or regular season?
This is regular season numbers, by the way. 2nd in passer rating behind Lamar Jackson. Obviously, he has more passing attempts. Not to disparage Lamar Jackson, but we know how Lamar Jackson is. He doesn't pass as often as Aaron Rodgers does.
Of course.
And the most important thing from a regular season standpoint before we get back to the playoffs, he has the best interception percentage of all time.
Seems good. So did he beat out Steve Young in that category?
I forget exactly who was second on that list, and I can try to look it up for you here in a second.
And by the way, we do have to say, when it comes to QB rating, after 2003, like almost every guy with a top 15 quarterback rating in NFL history is post 2003, where they weren't getting hit as much, right, where offenses and defenses were hamstrung and handcuffed with what they could do out there. There is definitely some inflated numbers going on. I do think it's important when you're comparing eras, talking quarterbacks. It's a totally different game than back in the day. Joe Namath is talked about as, one of the greats of all time. It's not just because of him predicting them winning the Super Bowl and being the underdogs there.
Major underdogs.
But he put up huge numbers for that time. That era. And you look at touchdown to interception ratio, it's like even.
Yeah, exactly. 2nd all-time in interception percentage. You're never going to guess this. Technically, he's tied with Aaron Rodgers for number 1. He is currently a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'll put it that way.
Currently a starting quarterback in the NFL, but I'm never going to guess it.
He played, okay, I'll try to make it easy because we're going to be sitting here all day. He played for a franchise that we just talked about within the past 2.5 minutes.
So we're talking about Kyler Murray?
Jacoby Brissett. Close. You're close.
Jacoby
Brissett is tied with Aaron Rodgers for the lowest, for the best interception percentage for a career.
Okay, wait a second.
Now,
I thought it'd have to be on so many attempts,
Whatever the attempts are, it qualifies.
All
so
right.
Justin Herbert comes after that. Tom Brady checks in at number 4. Then Colin Kaepernick comes in after that. But look, it's Aaron Rodgers, in his prime, came as close to mastering the quarterback position as anybody has ever done. So I went back and looked at this. So he had He had 6 seasons where he threw for over 4,000 yards with at least 35 touchdowns and fewer than 10 interceptions.
Ooh, passes it to the man.
6 times, 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 10 or fewer interceptions. That's hard to do.
Well, for years on this show, we argued that he's better than Brady.
I don't think there's an argument to make. Didn't Brady himself say that Aaron Rodgers would be better than him?
Well,
was better than him?
I think he had one quote before where you said he'd throw for 7,000 yards in this offense that we run over here with the Patriots.
That
but he also
a bit of an over-exaggeration, all right?
He also said this before. And I think this is spot on.
I've always appreciated about him what everybody does is his ability to throw a football and pass it. It's like in Aaron in his prime, to me, is the greatest passer of the football the league's ever seen. he could get the ball from point A to B faster and more accurate than any player, I think, in the history of the NFL.
That's coming from one of the best players who ever played the game.
The peer reviews are in.
Yeah, which, by the way, and look, I love Michael Wilbon. I think he's in a hot take artist society, and knowing the network that he works for and what they do, I think he does a pretty good job of being level-headed and reasonable with many of the arguments that he made.
But he made one to some of his peers.
He made one earlier this week that made me scratch my head. And not just me. Because they were talking about Aaron Rodgers. This was like the day after he announced that he was going to retire. And he basically said that Aaron Rodgers doesn't measure up to John Elway physically from like an athlete standpoint playing the quarterback position. And I'm like, huh? Like, and by the way, Elway was great. Phenomenal athlete, two-sport athlete, probably could have played Major League Baseball if he really wanted to. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best athletes to play the quarterback position I've ever seen. Aaron Rodgers could have run a lot. He just chose not to. Did a phenomenal job making tough throws on the run across his body. Like, he was one of the best athletes to play the quarterback position in the history of the sport. I don't know what Mike is talking about there.
Well, in his legs, that was a huge part of their offense. Obviously, since getting older and the Achilles injury, that's been lessened, and they really have to protect him much better with the Steelers now if they're going to get the most out of him in his final year. But this was somebody that we can talk about the old wives' tale stuff and how strong Elway was, and he threw it harder than the jugs machine.
And he did. He had a phenomenal arm. Yeah. He was one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen.
But here's what I know. We have it documented because of Next Gen Stats now. Aaron Rodgers in 2018 against the Detroit Lions, he threw a 74-yard pass. Oh, the new movie's coming out, so it's kind of timely. It looks like trash, though. A 74-yard pass last year. You remember the Hail Mary he had at the end of a game with the Steelers? It was incomplete, but he threw it 69.5 yards or something like that. I think it was the longest pass play, air yardage-wise, anyone threw all of last season at the age of, 42?
Yeah. Pretty incredible.
I'm with you on the athlete stuff. I think Wilbon's way underselling him.
And then one more thing. You know what? We probably don't have enough time. Can we carry this over and also do Stranger Than Fiction as well? Because I have one more important point when it comes to the narrative against Aaron Rodgers being a choke artist in the postseason. And one thing people don't talk about when it comes to other quarterbacks who have won multiple championships. So we'll talk about that. We'll also have Stranger Than Fiction coming up next here.